Hey everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I am back with another One Filmmaker, One Film, and today my guest is...
Hi, I'm Addison Binek, director and co-creator of Psycho Ape. I've also done 130 episodes of a movie riffing show on YouTube called Movies to Watch on a Rainy Afternoon. It's inspired by Mystery Science Theater and riff tracks. It's where I take some of the cheesy movies, that I find and write satirical commentary over certain clips from the movie. Like, it's not a full-length riff like Mystery Science Theater or riff tracks. I sort of cut up these movies and just sort of pick like the best of the worst clips and do jokes and stuff. And then I've also done 2 episodes of a full-length movie riffing show called Tromasterpiece Theater, where we took 2 different Troma films, The Battle of Love's Return and Poultrygeist, and we did full riffs with silhouettes at the bottom of the screen, just like Mystery Science Theater. And I had my sidekicks were a talking film reel puppet and a talking box of popcorn puppet. And so those are all of my projects, and most of that stuff is up on YouTube for free.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So we're going to talk about Psycho Ape, which is right here. There we go. And then, we could talk a little bit then towards the end about your Tromas. How do you pronounce it? Tromasterpiece. Tromasterpiece.
Yeah, Tromasterpiece
Theater presents, and this is the Poultrygeist one.
Yep, so. That was the second episode we did.
Yeah, and the first one again was?
It was a movie called The Battle of Love's Return. It's Lloyd Kaufman's first film that he ever made. He was like 25 years old when he made it in 1971.
Oh, wow.
It's never had like an official DVD release or anything. I found it as an Easter egg on, I think, like the Squeeze Play DVD. And so I ripped it off the DVD from that. And that's how I was able to use it for my project, because it's never had an official DVD or Blu-ray release. Just because, it's not the best movie in the world, and Lloyd pretty much knows that it's not going to sell a bunch of copies or anything, Even back in the 90s, they put the movie on VHS, and I got a VHS of it for Lloyd to sign, and it was still sealed. And he couldn't believe that, 1, I got a copy of it, and 2, that it was still sealed. And I was going to open it and have him sign it, and he was like, don't open that. There was only like 50 copies of that ever made.
So when he hears something like you found an Easter egg, you ripped it, how does he feel about that? I mean, he's Lloyd Kaufman. Is he like, oh, that's awesome, great, is it like, wait a minute?
No, he told me to do it that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he was behind, like, I got the green light to do Tromasterpiece Theater like 5 years ago. And he was like, just rip stuff off the DVD. Because I had initially requested, like, well, can you send me like a file or something I can download? And he was like, oh, just rip it off the DVD. And I'm like, okay.
So these are official, because it does say Troma down here. These are official Troma.
They're not official Troma releases. It's just that we put the logo on there to just, look legit, like it's just, it's more advertising for Troma and everything, just to show that they, were like, you can even see the quote on the back from Lloyd. He wasn't, he greenlit this. He was the one that told me, like, do Battle of Love's Return first, and if that's okay, then we'll do another one. And so then we did Poultrygeist, and he picked that one.
Here we have. So these are nice looking DVDs and packaging and everything.
Yeah, I get them made from Kunaki, and I put a lot of effort into like picking the good screenshots and stuff to make cool artwork and everything, because I feel like there's no special features or anything, but if you're gonna put your movie out on DVD, you should at least have like some cool artwork or something.
Yeah, and that's you being that's you right there yelling.
Yeah. Surprised, being shocked and surprised that my puppets can talk.
And well, we might as well just talk about this now since we are. why this film in particular? Why not like Terra Firma or
Because
Toxic Avenger?
Lloyd was the one who picked the movies.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't my choice. It was it was him.
Any particular reason for this one here?
I don't know. I mean, it was just, you don't question it. You know, if Lloyd says that you do this one next, like, okay, that's the one I'm going to do next.
Are there plans on a third?
No, just because, like, I finished that one in early 2020, and then the pandemic happened, and he kind of just, like, stopped licensing out movies to other people and stuff. I think they just kind of want to keep their stuff, like, close to the chest for a little while. I don't know. I'm not really sure. It was just that during the pandemic, during 2020, I had to like pull these DVDs and like stop making them and stuff. So Tromasterpiece, it was fun to do 2 episodes, but that's kind of the end of it.
Okay. I'll have to get the first one from you then. You know, where can people get this? If through you or through some other place?
I did have them on eBay for a while. I don't have them up there anymore, but I mean, I can get some manufactured and, you know, whatever, you know.
The one thing that I do like, and I noticed this on Psycho Ape, is Jab Products. Is that you?
That's me. It started out as a YouTube channel. Me and my buddy about 11, 12 years ago started a YouTube channel. And it was where we were making, like, you know, I started movies to watch on a rainy afternoon, you know, my riffing stuff, but we were also doing like a comedy sitcom type show when we were like 20 years old, living together in our apartment, called Addie and Andy. And we did about, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 episodes of that, but we just sort of called it Jab Productions because both of our initials are AB. Like, he's Andrew Barber and I'm Addison Binek, but his mother's maiden name is Johnson. So we put the J in front of the AB, so it became Jab. Okay. And then we always wanted to have some kind of logo of like a boxer or something like that, like, you know, Jab. And so I filmed like it's at the intro. I think it might be at the intro of Tromasterpiece as well. I know it's in front of Psycho Ape. Of I volunteered to like put a blindfold on and have a cigarette in my mouth, and he socks me in the face with the boxing glove, and we took a screenshot of me getting socked in the face with the boxing glove, and that became the logo for Jab.
I thought that's what I like about it. Is I really like it. It looks like it's like a prank, and then you get punched in the face, and then I just laughed. When I watched Psycho Ape, I laughed. When I watched this, I laughed. I think it's a good like piece for like a film company or studio or YouTube page or whatever you want to use it for.
We had the name for years. Like, that was our YouTube channel for like. Yeah, since like 2009, but I didn't actually get like that logo made until, I don't know, 2019, 2020. Like, it took a long time because I initially wanted it to be like animation or something, like actual, like, you know, Flash player, some kind of animation or something. But I had this footage of me like getting socked in the face by a boxing glove. And I was like, okay, let's turn that into the logo. Like, we have this footage, that can be the logo.
Yeah, it works. It really works. So, yeah, I like it. And you had mentioned that Lloyd was on the back of this, and I find it funny. It says, "Please make fucking," which is censored. Sure that the world knows that I gave you free temporary rights, and that Troma team gets no money from this Tromasterpiece theater. Lloyd Kaufman.
Yeah, like at the
time, it's not really a review. It's
no, it's not a review. It's just he was giving me the movie for free for a little while, but you know, licensing rights to these things are expensive, and I can't afford them. So that was kind of the end of Tromasterpiece.
And then, of course, it says a cinematic triumph, a quote from someone.
Yeah. Someone said it somewhere, sure.
Yeah. It's possible. Yeah, yeah, I could see that. So yeah, I enjoyed watching this. So like you said, it's Mystery Science Theater ish. You
Yeah,
know,
it's Mystery Science Theater, but with Troma films because
I mean,
I
it's
always
kind of right there. So
yeah. I like Mystery Science Theater is like my favorite thing in the world, and I always want to do my own version of it. But uh, at the time, like 10 years ago, when I started doing movies to watch on a rainy afternoon, like my riffing stuff, you couldn't put like full feature length videos on your YouTube channel unless you had like a specialty YouTube channel. Um, that's changed now, and you can put like full length movies on your YouTube channel if you're just like an average channel, but you couldn't 10, 11, 12 years ago. So that's why I started doing movies to watch on a rainy afternoon, and I was making like 15-minute long riffing reviews of just junky movies that were in my collection. And over time, I realized like we have way too many jokes for like a 15-minute review. And I contacted Troma and Lloyd and some, I asked if I could do like a feature length thing with Troma and use some of their movies, and I would get like puppets made and everything. And initially it was just supposed to be for Troma Now, which was their streaming service, because in 2016, that's when they were going to launch it. 2016, 2017, they were getting ready to launch it. And I kind of wanted to be like on the ground floor with Tromasterpiece. So, I did episode 1, The Battle of Love's Return, for Troma Now. But then, he let me sell DVDs at conventions and stuff. So I was going around with the Troma team to conventions like Horror Hound and Cinema Wasteland, and I was sitting at the booth and I was selling my Tromasterpiece Theater DVDs, but I was also helping them sell their stuff. And because you don't get paid to volunteer at the Troma table, but you're allowed to sell your own merchandise and your own movies, so you could cover the cost of your hotel room or something like that.
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And why did you decide on a film reel and popcorn? Why not like a soda and a candy bar?
Just because the guy who made the puppets, he came up with the names Corny and Reely, and he thought like he just pitched those names to me, and so I thought like, okay, that sounds good enough. And he wanted the challenge of making like big bulky puppets, because you also got to think that like a candy bar would be too small in a silhouette. You wouldn't be able to really see it. And same thing with like a soda, it would be too small. You wouldn't see it in the silhouette. So they had to be like big bulky puppets. And so we kind of just thought like a box of popcorn, a film reel, just kind of made the most sense. You'd actually be able to see them at the bottom of the screen.
And how do you figure out the jokes for this? Like, do you have like an audience at some point to see if they work or not? How do you do that?
Well, because I've been doing movies to watch on a rainy afternoon for like 7 or 8 years, by the time we got to Tromasterpiece, we already like, because I sit down with like my group of friends, and at that time I had like 6 or 7 different friends who would come over, and we would just kick on a junky movie, and we'd watch it, and I'd write down time codes and jokes or comments about whatever we were watching. And eventually like the jokes, like for rainy afternoon, like I was saying, we would get too many, and it's like I can't just put out like a 25-minute, I mean I have, but it was getting kind of like every episode of rainy afternoon is becoming like 20 to 25 minutes long, and that's really long. But with Tromasterpiece, it's like, well, we need jokes, we need as many as possible. And like, they're not all zingers, but as long as, there's like jokes in there spread around the movie, then it's okay. Like if a joke bombs or isn't very good, then don't worry. In 15 seconds, there's going to be another one. So we just kind of watch the movie like Poultrygeist or Battle of Love's Return. We would just watch those films over and over and over again, and we would focus on certain spots that didn't have very many jokes. And because the movie's a musical too. I mean, Poltergeist. We sort of just let the movie like sing and didn't really have too many jokes during the songs. Like we have a couple, but it kind of let us breathe for a little while and not really need to stick jokes in the songs. But it's just more of a guessing game of like, what we think is funny or what I think is funny, because I would curate everybody's jokes and comments and, stick them all in certain areas in the movie. But, because I had done Rainy Afternoon for years, and at that point, I already had like 90 some episodes in the can that I edited myself. I just kind of knew like how to space these out and how to pace all the jokes out.
So do you guys just kind of like, you end up having something like 100 jokes,
Oh yeah,
but you
yeah.
can only use, let's say, 50. So then you got to kind of cross stuff off, or
Kinda, yeah. Like, I don't necessarily like having jokes over dialogue scenes. I want you to be able to at least hear what the characters are talking about, so as not to cover up like, exposition or something like that. Or if they have a joke or something, like, I don't want to, like, we're riffing on a movie, but I don't want to like take away from the actor saying a line of dialogue or something. Like if the line is bad or if it's not funny or something, and we can make a riff on that, I want to wait until the end of the sentence. Like, let that character say their piece and then we'll do something about it. But yeah, there were some instances where, yeah, it was just, I had to cut some stuff because sometimes you have like two or three riffs that are all funny after a certain moment, but you can't fit all three in. Like if one character says something and there's like a pause or a beat, and then another character immediately starts talking, then you can really only go with like one comment in that beat. And so you got to pick the best one.
and has there been, and you don't need to name the movie, but if you don't want to, but has there been a film that you've come across that just doesn't work? Like, we just can't get anything funny off of this, or is everything funny?
No, I mean that's true. There's when uh when Lloyd wouldn't greenlight a third episode, I wanted to sort of try to see if I could make my own kind of thing. I retitled it from Tromasterpiece to Roast Masterpiece Theater, and I was going to try to curate films from other companies. And so I started contacting people from Vinegar Syndrome or people from Severin or people from Full Moon to see if I could license movies from like other companies. Um, so as not to pigeonhole just, myself into one specific company. And I had a bunch of movies sent to me from Vinegar Syndrome. They sent me like a box of like public domain movies that they had sort of remastered. And me and my roommate, who does the voice of the film reel and who plays the Psycho Ape, we went through a bunch of these movies to sort of just like screen them, like not to write riffs, but to screen them and see if there was anything in there that we might pick for like a potential episode or something. Because we got to keep in mind too that like we're not just watching this once. Like we kind of have to like the movie or enjoy it in a certain way where we have to, and we're going to have to sit through it like 10, 12 times.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the movies that Vinegar Syndrome sent me, they just, they didn't work because they were either like too long because they were like an hour and 50 minutes. And like, that's just too long to sit through a dozen times and then try to like think of riffs for like an entire hour and 50 minutes. Or they were just so dull that it's like no amount of riffing is going to make this like entertaining. You know what I mean? And they were all, like they were like, I forget what the movie was, like not Blood Beast or Blood Beat, but it was Blood something, and it was like this 1950s black and white movie from the Philippines, and there was just nothing going on. It was one of the dullest movies I've ever sat through in my life. And like I was like, no wonder this was like in the public domain, and because nobody would want to own the rights to this. Like this is just so boring, and you know, like I said, no amount of riffing could have saved that movie. I like watching like episodes of Mystery Science Theater or Riff Tracks where like, yeah, the movie sucks or the movie's bad or something, but at least it's so cheesy or so bad that like it becomes funny. Like if the movie can stand on its own and you kind of laugh at its shortcomings even without the riffs, then that's what you go with. Like that's the one that you should pick. It should at least have something in it, like some kind of exploitive elements or some kind of crazy blood and gore or like gratuitous nudity or something that you could like keep yourself sort of entertained with. But if it's just completely dull or if it's just like dialogue scenes that go on forever, then that's not a good pick. So at the end of like going through this box of movies, I mean, we only really walked away with like 2 out of 14 that we were like maybe we could do these ones, but it's still like like after you do Poultrygeist, it's like, well, the standard has like, this is where the standard is set, because Poultrygeist is not a bad movie. It's a fun movie.
Right.
But it's got all of those elements that I like, and something, it has everything that makes me want to watch it over and over again. Like I can watch that movie over and over again. So trying to find something that like matches that kind of like quality, but we can riff on it too. It became really hard,
Is there a line? Like, is there at any sort of point in this where Lloyd watched it and goes, "Whoa, wait a minute! You can't say that. That's not funny. That's not a joke."
To be fair, I don't even know if he watched it. Like I know he watched Battle of Love's Return, or maybe he even got just like his assistant to watch it or something like that, because they were both on Troma Now for a little while, but they're not there anymore. But I think he's got so much on his plate that I don't even think he watches like the Troma submissions that they get, that they license. Because I think it works where it's like, filmmakers like submit their stuff to go on Troma Now or to get released on Blu-ray or something. And he's got like a team of people who they watch these submissions and they take extensive notes, and then they go to Lloyd. And then they're like, you should acquire this based on these notes. And then maybe he'll take a look at the film and decide whether or not they want it, But I have a feeling that he's like, there's probably half of the Troma catalog he's never seen, because he had his, Troma employees probably screen the movie first.
Right, sure.
Based on their recommendation, like, okay, we'll acquire it.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense when you're Lloyd Kaufman. I mean,
Yeah,
Sundance Film Festival. If you're Robert Redford, you're not watching every single movie that comes in. You got your group of 10 people that are watching them, and he's trusting that they
made the right choice.
Yeah. So, what's the best one that you've done? And this could be for Troma, it could be for Rainey, it could be for anything. What's the best one?
I mean, Poultrygeist is definitely up there because I was a fan of that movie way before we even did it for riffing. I've owned it on DVD since like 2008 when it came out, so that was more of a challenge of like, how do you riff on something that you actually enjoy? But we found a way, and people seem to like the finished product. And then for Rainy Afternoon, I'm trying to think, because we got 130 episodes of that. Like, there's been some movies where I've gone back and sort of rewatched the movies, like after I did a full episode on it, and after a couple of years went by or something like that, and then I revisited the movie to like check it out again with like the riffs completely out of my head. And I ended up really enjoying the movie Spookies. We did that movie for A Rainy Afternoon, and then like a year or two later, Vinegar Syndrome put it out on Blu-ray. And so I picked it up on Blu-ray and I watched it again, and I was like, you know what? I mean, yeah, this movie's kind of a mess, but it's a fun mess. And had I taken that approach to the Rainy Afternoon episode, it might not have been as like funny because I would have like actually like enjoyed the movie. But the first time I watched it with my group of friends, I mean, we were just throwing jokes at it and stuff. But I ended up enjoying that movie like after the fact. Same thing with the movie Christmas Evil. I ended up actually really enjoying that movie because it's kind of like Taxi Driver, but with like, instead of Travis Bickle, it's a toy factory worker who goes nuts on Christmas and dresses up as Santa and just kind of goes crazy, running around New York and stuff, causing havoc. And I ended up like liking it, watching it later and realizing like, yeah, it's riff worthy for sure, but it actually is a good movie,
Oh, I own it. I watch it every December. Yeah. I really like, I got the soundtrack to it, all that stuff. So
the first time I ever watched it, I watched it just with like a buddy of mine and we just wrote jokes for it. But then there used to be like an independent movie theater near me, and they would do like midnight movies and stuff like for cult films, and they would do it year round. And so around Christmas, they showed Christmas Evil. And I was like, yeah, I did this as a rainy afternoon, but I kind of want to see it in theaters, So I went and I saw it on the big screen, and that's when I was like, oh, this movie actually is pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard some people call it boring. Like some critics have said that the film is boring, and it's like,
yeah,
it really isn't, because it's not. It was made during that time period where there's an actual story.
Well, yeah,
it
it's
isn't
character
just
development. Yeah, instead of like, I mean, you could just, like I said, Travis Bickle is a good example, but also even like that Joker movie with like Joaquin Phoenix, substitute like a comedian, like a struggling comedian who turns into a Joker, substitute that with like an unhinged toy factory worker, and he becomes like a killer Santa. It's kind of the same thing.
Interesting comparisons. Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it.
And have you ever been contacted by, with stuff like this, especially with the guys right down here? Have you ever been contacted by the Mystery Science Theater or Riff Tracks or Cinematic Titanic guys, anything like that?
No. I've even, when I started doing Tromasterpiece like 5 years ago, it was kind of around the same time they were doing the reboot of Mystery Science Theater for like Netflix and stuff. And I sent them copies of my Battle of Love's Return episode to see if maybe I could, apply for a job or something, a writing position or something. But I never heard back from anybody.
Yeah.
I just like, here's my resume. I made, a feature-length riffing project with puppets and green screen. So, if that's not a resume for something like that, I don't know what is. But I don't know.
Right.
Either they don't take submissions, they don't want to look at it, or just because like I'm not in the industry and I'm just like some guy who makes stuff for YouTube. They don't know who I am, so they just didn't look at it.
Yeah, well, you did it. You sent something in. That's more than what a lot of people do, where they just sit on their sofa and go, "I could do better than that. I should be on that show." Well, did you send them anything? Even if you never hear back, at least you sent something in. And a lot of people would be like, "No, but I could still do better." I mean, well, if you could do better, then go out and do it.
Yeah.
And you did. With the 2 Tromas and then the YouTube channel. So
yeah, it's just a matter of like, I'm sure they get so many submissions for other stuff or tweets, because I tried tweeting them the link on YouTube and they never clicked on it. They never retweeted it. They never liked it. So I don't think anybody from the Mystery Science Theater camp ever watched, my stuff. And, it wasn't for lack of trying.
Well, I think a lot of these are the very kind of inclusive, that they,
I think so too.
Like you're not just gonna get onto Red Letter Media. You're not gonna, email Mike and go, "Oh my God, I love your show. I would be so perfect for it. Can you please have me on?" That they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, next time you're in Milwaukee, come on in." no, you need to be a Patton Oswalt, or you need to
Yeah,
be a
yeah,
Max Lucas, or even recently it was Jake Quaid was on there, and you know, somebody in a multi-million-dollar movie like Scream is showing up on a YouTube show. So I think that it's very inclusive.
no, it
So
is. It's you know, uh, Joel Hodgson for the reboot of Mystery Science Theater. You know, he handpicked everybody that is currently on that show, like Jonah Ray and Felicia Day and Patton Oswalt. You know, he went through and he picked his favorite comedians who he knew were fans and could also, like, you know, knock it out of the park being a part of the show. And it's like, I'm not a famous comedian, you know, so it's fine, you know, it's totally fine. But it's like, it would have been cool to,
sure.
you know, just have them acknowledge that, like, oh, you did one of these, like, yourself for like $500. Like, congratulations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the whole thing of just of doing it, of I don't want to say trying, because then trying almost sounds like failure, but it's a of doing it, of sending something in. Like I said, even if you don't hear back, you did it. You know, it's, you know, if somebody criticizes a filmmaker, well, go out and make your own movie then. You
Yeah.
know, it's even bad movies take, you know, time to make. Nobody sets out to make a bad movie. So, but once you start doing it, you do realize how difficult it is. And as I'm sure, thinking up jokes and riffing and doing all that is not easy either, because what is funny to you may not be funny to me.
Right. That was one of the things that I also sort of took into account. Like, um, you know, me and my group of friends have a very sort of niche sense of humor and a set of references too, where, like, I'm not like a sports guy or a political guy or anything like that. So if they were throwing out jokes that were like sports related or politically charged, I wouldn't really like think the jokes were particularly funny, but I kind of trusted them, where I was like, if you think that's funny or topical in any way, then I'll include it in the episode. I won't nix it because I don't think it's funny. But if you think it'll land, then I'll use it anyway. And sometimes they kind of had to fight me for it, you know, like, please let me say that joke, you know, like, I'd be like, well, I don't think it's funny, and it's like, you know, let me just, well, okay, fine. We don't have, if we don't have anything else for that particular moment, if we can't think of anything better, that's what we use. Um, and it was fine. It was a, you know, it's a compromise. Plus, when you have a riffing thing, you need to have like 100 jokes anyway, so that's totally fine.
Well, I enjoyed it. You know, I'd like to see the first one, and I'll put links down below to, you know, to find you on YouTube, so other
Thank you.
people can experience this too. So and you mentioned not being like political or anything, but I did see a couple political things in our next film here. So there was the Reagan AIDS joke that I did
Oh
laugh
yeah,
at, especially
that
at
was
my age. You know,
that was improvised. That was Kansas Bowling. She improvised that joke, and we just thought it was so funny that she just off the cuff came up with that. That it's like, well, okay, that's definitely in the movie.
well, and she seems young, and so she must know something, you know, for her age to make that joke. Because I'm
Yeah.
55. I'm about to turn 55, and at that time I was still pretty young, but I remember Reagan not doing anything. You know,
Yeah.
he just let people die, basically, kind of like what was going on with, you know, with corona virus.
Yeah.
So since I guess we can't say that word on YouTube, but yeah, I laughed, and I did make a note of it. I actually
Yeah.
LOL'd, as the young people say.
Well, she, despite only being, I think when we filmed with her 3 years ago, she was like 22. Um, she actually, her sort of pop culture references are more deep rooted into the 60s. Now, she's a big fan of the Monkees, Like that whole scene.
My favorite band.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
have a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been a Monkees fan since I was 10. And
Yeah.
that was like 76, 77 is when they came back. And I've been a fan ever since. I've seen every tour since 1986. Every tour. I drove 6 hours to see one tour. So I've met all of them. It's yeah. So when she was naming off different Monkees, I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, Bob Raffleson. Wait a minute here. How does she know
Yeah.
who Bob Raffleson is?
Again, entirely her. That was her pitch. She was like, because we had the idea that they were going to name off apes, you know, and Greg and I, the guy who I made the movie with, we wrote down all of the famous apes in films that we could think of, like King Kong and Abu from Aladdin, Grape Ape. And she was like, before all these other names, can I list off all of the monkeys from the band? And so we were like, sure, you know, we wouldn't know one way or the other if the names you're saying are accurate, because he and I are not fans of the Monkees. Not that we don't like them, it's just that we don't know anything about them, and we don't know, you know, we're not, like, we don't listen to that. So
have you watched the TV show, especially the second season?
I've never seen it.
It's you would love it, especially with me watching this.
Mm-hmm.
That show was groundbreaking for its time because a lot of it was improv.
Okay.
And the camera moves are crazy camera moves. They're insane. It's completely revolutionary for the time that it came out. So I think that you would, and they're all on YouTube. I think that you would really enjoy, especially the second season episodes where they break that wall and they look straight into the camera and talk to the audience, which they didn't do during like the first season a lot. But I think you would love it. Yeah, definitely check it out, because it reminded me, you know, I'm just like, when she brought up the Monkees, I'm like, oh, they got to be Monkey fans, because
yeah, surprisingly, no, we're not. she is.
Yeah, and I like this cover. I like this cover a lot. It's very crazy.
Yeah, the person who did the cover art for that also did my cover art for the Tromasterpiece Poultrygeist that you were holding. He did both.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a continuity sort of with my art. I hit up the same artist, and he always does a good job.
Yeah, it's really nice. In fact, I think this is what attracted me to the movie to begin with.
Yeah,
I saw this poster, on like Facebook, and I'm like, "Ooh, what is this?" Because I like how it's got the review. It's got Fangoria. The trailer looks so rad.
Yeah, it's not even a review.
Yeah, it's just a statement.
It was like when it was, that quote is from when we were like getting ready to launch the Kickstarter for the movie. And I think I had sent them our teaser trailer, like somebody on their, Facebook page or something. And they messaged me back and they were like, the trailer looks rad. But that's all they said. They didn't like share the trailer. They didn't share my Kickstarter. Like, I was kind of bummed because it's like, they didn't really help me out with promotion or anything like that. And I can't really get in contact with anybody from Fangoria, despite like my incessant emails and stuff, and me trying to like, because I've emailed them like the screener link or something to like watch the movie and maybe like promote it or review it in some way, but I just can't seem to crack the code to like get their attention over there. But somebody from Fangoria said the trailer looked rad that one time,
and you're like, oh, okay, right on the poster.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Yeah, and you've seen Kong, you've seen Planet of the Apes. This is also a movie.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is true. It is a movie. Yeah. So there's no lying there. You're not deceiving anybody.
No, like that joke is from like, we're big fans of Airplane and like Kentucky Fried Movie and stuff. And so that's sort of just our that style of joke, like we wanted to really emphasize that, like, what you're about to watch is like a Mel Brooks style or like Zucker Brothers style, like spoof,
What do you, since you brought this up, what do you prefer? The old school stuff like the Mel Brooks, the Airplanes, the Naked Gun type stuff, or the new stuff like Scary Movie, Disaster
Oh, I
Movie.
mean, I definitely Mel Brooks. Like he's the one who I grew up watching. I like the first like three Scary Movie movies, but all that other stuff is just garbage. It's straight up garbage.
Yeah, it's just references. It's just not, you're not getting a, it would be almost like the scene in this where they're going up the Empire State Building, and if somebody went, hey, look, that's just like that movie King Kong, you
Right.
know, that old black and white movie with Fay Ray. And then so people get the reference. You don't have to do that if you know ape movies.
Right. Right.
You know that joke. And today, that's what it seems to be, is all of these spoofs and stuff are, they're not even really spoofs. I even worked on the film Mafia, and
Wow.
and I worked on 2 scenes on that as a production assistant for a company called Stargate Films.
Okay.
And I got to go to the Ambassador Hotel, where I tried to find where Robert Kennedy was assassinated, and I didn't know it at the time. That's when they were filming Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, that's cool.
They were shooting that there, not in Las Vegas, and so it was fun working on the movie. But then when I saw it in the theater, it's like, oh, those are the 2 scenes I worked on, but the movie's not funny.
Yeah, I've seen parts of Mafia, but not the whole thing.
Yeah, it's not great. It's. I mean, the joke of Jane Austen's Mafia, I guess, is maybe the funniest thing in the whole movie.
Well, I think because wasn't the movie made by one of the guys who like used to collaborate with the Zucker brothers, but then at a certain point they kind of split, and like they kind of like all tried doing their own like spoof movies in the 90s, and like some were successful and some weren't.
It's possible. I know that was the thing, is that it was at least 1 or 2 of the guys. So I don't
Yeah,
think
they were a comedy team, you know, and like they worked on, you know, Kentucky Fried Movie, and they worked on the Naked Gun movies. But it's like it's not just the Zucker brothers, but it was also like 2 or 3 other guys who were like contributing
right.
writers. And then I think those contributing writers probably got like a movie deal or something from, you know, various companies, low budget companies.
From one of the writers of Airplane, you know, type
Yeah, yeah. They were probably like, you know, let's hit up that guy because the Zucker brothers are too expensive, you
right.
know, or they won't do this project that we have, you know, written for like a person like that. So let's try to hire like, you know, the 5th name or the 5th writer that's listed in Airplane or something, and he'll do it. And then the movie just ends up not being good because it's like, well, you hired the last guy, you know.
Yeah, and I laughed my butt off in this. I really did. I loved how it was put together. I loved. I mean, I thought it seemed like everybody was like 100% committed. This goes into my. I may do a playlist just on YouTube of just crazy, batshit insane movies that people should watch. And I think this goes into the same category as some other filmmakers that I've done, like Christmas with Cookie, you know, Spirit Animal. There's some of these films that are just so crazy that you have to watch them. And this is one.
Spirit Animal's fun. I like Maddie.
Yeah, it's just a crazy movie. And I put this in that category with just these insane films that make sense, but they don't make sense. Like there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a story there, but they're just crazy.
Yeah.
Like you can't really leave the room because you're going to miss something.
Yeah. We just wanted to make it as dense, as dense for a 60-minute movie that we could, you know, with just nonstop jokes and weird stuff and kills. That like, because that was part of the thing where before and that's one of our production days, just hanging out in the backyard. You know, I go to a lot of horror conventions and I buy up a lot of, you know, indie films, and you know, more often than not I come across these like epic 2.5-hour movies that were made for like $1,000, and it's like, man, I cannot sit through this, you know. Like, your movie is way too long and it needed some serious editing. Like if you took what you had and cut it down to like 45 minutes or an hour and just like had like a short movie out of it, then it would be fine. But I think people, when they make their movies, they just shoot and shoot and shoot and just get everything and put it all in there. And it's like, you don't have to use everything. Like,
Sure.
unless, you have like the budget for it, but more often than not, it just doesn't justify the length. So as we were shooting, my Psycho 8 co-filmmaker, who I made the movie with, Greg, he was editing the movie kind of like as we were going. And one day he was like, the movie's like an hour long. And so that's kind of when we decided, like, all right, that's enough. Let's just stop shooting.
And it's actually, it's 1 hour, 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Well, to be exactly precise.
Yeah. Well, the last 4 minutes is like end credits with bloopers and stuff.
Yes. And I'm mad at you. I'm mad at you because I enjoyed this so much. I wanted audio commentary, or at least like a little making of something like that.
Well,
so we got the bloopers, which is good. Yeah. I like that. But I wanted to know, which is why I'm glad I'm interviewing you now, is I wanted to know like how certain scenes were done, why you did those scenes. And I was like, why is there no audio commentary?
It's because in October 2020, the guy who I made the movie with, Greg, he had to move from, because I'm in Michigan and he lived in Michigan. He had like a week after he sent me the final cut of the movie for us to like approve. From that, like him sending me the final cut, we had a week before he had to move to LA. Like he had to go. He was in the middle of packing. He was in the middle of moving his entire life to Los Angeles. So we just didn't have time to sit down and record an audio commentary, That's really what it was.
I've almost thought that if people don't get the chance or they're not allowed to, they should almost just do it on their own and just put it up on YouTube. So you can listen to it on YouTube while watching the film, like on your TV.
Yeah, it was just that, this movie was made using like Kickstarter money. And so we were like, we need to press discs like immediately. We're saying the movie is done. We got artwork. It's finished. So we can put this on DVD like next week. And we just, because he was in the middle of moving and didn't have time to like make plans to sit down and like record an audio commentary with me, we just didn't do it because it's like, he's got to move. Half his belongings are, boxed up and packed up, and he's got to go. So we just didn't do one. And then as for like a making of, that's just because we only had the one camera. We didn't have any behind the scenes footage. Anything that was considered like a funny blooper, it's in the end credits. I mean, there are more bloopers, I'm sure, but nothing as funny as what we used in the end credits. You know what I mean? You would just be getting like the lesser of the bloopers, in a bonus feature, the remains, the leftovers, not the top tier funny stuff that's in the credits already.
Right. No, that makes sense, because a lot of people, and I think I've even done the same myself, is you try to pad it out, with, you have funny here and then less funny, funny, less funny, then funny, that type of thing, to give yourself a good 5-minute or 10-minute blooper reel. So you're right on with that, I think. Yeah.
And because the movie was so run and gun, especially when we were filming in New York, just because we got kicked out of locations and stuff, and we had to make do with whatever footage that we had. There was no behind the scenes because we just had to get everything done as quickly as possible, because we were also, we only had our main cast for a couple of days. Like the stuff with Bill in Kansas, we only were filming with them for like a 9-day block straight. It was like 4 days filming in New York. Then we took a day off to travel back to Michigan. And then it was like 4 more days in Michigan, and then that was a wrap, So we didn't really have time to sit down with them and interview them. And, we were just we were focused on trying to get what we could while we had them. And so there was just no time to film like behind the scenes stuff because we were just moving too fast and just trying to get everything done as quick as possible.
Well, and on the cover here, it says down at the bottom, micro budget DIY guerrilla filmmaking. It looks like it's shot on mini DV.
Mini DV. Yeah, we shot on mini DV tape.
Yeah, so talk about all of that.
Well, that was I knew that Greg had already filmed his film Hectic Knife using mini DV. That movie is currently in distribution with Troma, and I liked that movie, and I used to work with him as like his personal assistant for about 2 years. That's kind of how I got to know him, and I would help him cut trailers and stuff, and he'd pay me, and I'd get us lunch and stuff, and he'd pay me back, and we would just, I was running errands for him, shipping out DVD sales of his movie, going to the post office, and he'd reimburse me. And so I did that for about 2 years. And I was also a fan of his film. But I one day pitched him the idea of Psycho Ape, and I was like, I want to shoot this movie the same kind of way that like you made Hectic Knife, because I have, an HD camera. It's not like 4K or anything, but it's like HD. I got it in 2013. So it's like 2013 HD. So it's really like archaic now. But I was like, I think it'd be funny to shoot this kind of movie, like a guy in a crappy gorilla costume killing people, if we did that on mini DV, because that's kind of a even more archaic technology. And so he went with it. And so he was the DP. We co-wrote the film together. He edited the movie. But it was just because that was the kind of camera that he had. And he'd had that camera for so long that he knew the ins and outs of it. And he had already shot a feature film using that same camera. So I bought us a whole bunch of mini DV tapes, and we just, rolled with it. The problem, though, with shooting mini DV was that, it's not just like you plug the camera into your computer and it just, you can just download the files or anything. Like, you actually have to hit play on the camera and let the tape run the entirety of the tape. And then that gets documented and recorded into the computer. So he probably spent hours and hours and hours transferring all of that footage real time, into the computer. But also because his camera was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years old by that point, it was kind of it was worn down. And this was kind of the movie's final. This movie was the camera's like final hurrah, because he has since purchased like a 4K like mini DV camera where it no longer takes tape, but the style still looks like a mini DV tape. Like, it's really, I haven't seen any footage yet, but he's really pleased with it. So, but from using, this style camera that took tape, and it was an older camera at this point, some of the problems that we faced, especially when we're filming in New York and like the conditions of just running around and trying to get any shot that we could, the camera was falling apart. Like the window that when you open up the camera was like cracked at the top. So it was just kind of dangling off sideways. And we had to tape it back together. And it was very, very like, just, half-assed tape job, just whatever we could so the thing didn't fall off completely. But, and then at one point, after a full day of shooting New York stuff, he went to go check the tape or like pull the tape out to put a new tape in. And when he hit the eject button and the side window opened, it started to like rewind like while it was already open. So like, that's not good. So he had to close it again really quick so as not to like scramble the tape. Because that's what could have happened if he didn't act fast. And we didn't lose any footage, thankfully. Like, it almost ate the tape, and we almost lost an entire day of New York footage. Like that would have been so bad, because we would have lost like all of the footage of them on the ferry, like, going to the Statue of Liberty. We would have lost all of the stuff on like the subway. We would have lost them running around Times Square. Like we would have had to do all that all over again. So thankfully we didn't lose anything. Like there are some scenes in the movie where you can see like pixels, and it's kind of like we couldn't cut around that. We couldn't do anything to clean that up. But it's because some of the tape got garbled a little bit, but not to the point where the footage was completely unusable, thankfully.
But it kind of matches the film, though.
It kind of does. You can't really tell. That we got lucky there. We got totally lucky that you can't really notice it. Plus, we disguised some of it by putting in like blood splatter and stuff. So your eyes are more focused on the blood splatter than like the weird pixels that pop up. Like it happens pretty prominently towards the end when they're in the subway and the ape and Nancy are like posing for a girl's picture in front of like a monkey, like there's like a monkey made out of tiles like on the subway, and he grabs a banana and shoves it down her throat. There's a lot of pixelation in that scene in particular, but you can't really, I mean, we distract you by throwing in CGI blood that kind of, takes the focus off the pixelation on the screen. And, you're more focused on like the moment of like the banana going down her throat and the CGI blood. So you don't really notice the pixelation. That's kind of the only part where it was like really bad, but luckily we didn't lose anything substantial,
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about because, I've mentioned in my age is back in the day when I went to film school, we were shooting on like Super 8, 16. Mm-hmm. And then down the road, I decided to go back to film school again. And because I was so out of date that my instructor had both Super 8 and 16 cameras that were hooked up to mini DV tapes. So I could, but it was like you said, real time is I would transfer these films onto mini DV, and you have to sit there through every single one. You can't fast forward, you can't do anything. And then now everything is transferred to mini DV, but now I can't do anything with it because at the time that was the shit, that was the top thing to do. Well, now I can't get these freaking things transferred to digital, get them onto a hard drive or something. So now they're just sitting on mini DV. And it's so and we did shoot things when I went to college the second time on mini DV. So we constantly used either like a VHS camera or mini DV, depending on what was available to the student. So it's anything that deals with tape can be a nightmare, And
there are places now, I think, I'm pretty sure that you could just send those tapes in and they can digitize it like for you, but I'm sure it's cost a lot of money.
Oh yeah. It's not cheap. There's ways of doing it. It's just a matter of just figuring it out. So
yeah, I think there's some sort of like VCR tape deck thing that you can get, and you hook that up like into your computer, and you can put the tape inside this like VCR thing and close it. And you have to do it, like real time again, where you play the tape and it transfers like into your computer, but again, it's the same thing of having to like sit there and let the whole thing play out in entirety for it to digitize your footage. And if you're sitting on like, a dozen tapes, it's gonna take a long time.
Well, and bringing up the camera, what do you think about this? Now, we're supposed to get out of mini DVs. We're supposed to get out of Super 8. We're supposed to get out of things looking like they're VHS. Things are supposed to be crystal clear and all that stuff. What do you think of, yourself included, I guess, would be people now kind of going back, almost doing a whole retro thing of, I want my film to look like it's shot on Super 8. I want my film to be shot on VHS. I want my, you know, and it's like, you know, Kodak came out with a camera that's digital that looks like Super 8. Are we supposed to be moving on to
I think, well, I think what it is there's certain people and certain filmmakers who they grew up with a certain style and they just like that aesthetic, you know? There are filters, you know, in Final Cut Pro and stuff that you can toss on your crystal clear 4K footage if you want to make it look like Super 8 or make it look like 16 millimeter. But you can also tell that it's phony, that it's not authentic.
Right.
You know, it's a filter. So I think some of these people want to do it the real way and want to actually like go through the process of doing it this way and try to make it as authentic as possible, just for a, you know, an aesthetic reason, or because that's just the way they see movies. Like, you know, I'm friends with people on Facebook who they don't like watching movies past a certain decade. You know, like they're stuck.
I find that so strange. I find that so weird.
They don't watch, you know, modern like Marvel movies and stuff because it's too like expensive, green screen, glossy stuff. It's just it goes in one ear or it goes in one eye and comes out the other for them. You know, it's just they don't comprehend that this is like a quote unquote movie to them. It's just sort of like a series of special effects, and they can't get drawn into the story the way that other people can. And so they can only really watch certain kinds of movies from a certain era because that's just what they know, you know, it's their comfort zone. Or some people don't really like watching modern films either because the, you know, you can get away with a lot more in modern movies in terms of like violence and nudity, and some people just don't like that, you know, and so they want to stick with B monster movies from the 50s because they don't have gratuitous nudity and over the top gore and violence. So that's just where they're comfortable, is like, you know, Universal monster movies or like cheesy sci-fi flicks from the 50s of a guy in a monster suit, you know, or an alien in a monster suit. And that's just what they like, you know?
Right.
Like a couple months ago, I was at Cinema Wasteland and I tried to give a copy of Psycho Ape to filmmaker Fred Olin Ray.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought he would go for it, you know, but he was not interested at all. He didn't get the joke. Because I pitched it to him like, you know, it's a guy in a gorilla costume. It's a bad gorilla costume on purpose. Like, that's the joke. And it went right over his head, you know? Like, he didn't understand that we were trying to make a comedy where a guy in a crappy gorilla costume was chopping people up with bananas. He didn't get it. And that's just because, you know, he's a guy who's in his 60s, and this wasn't the kind of movie that he grew up with, or, you know, not even the kind of movie that he made, you know, in his career. Like, he made low budget, cheesy monster movies, but they were never parodies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but yet he made Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
I know. That's why I thought he'd go for it, but he just didn't. You know, he seemed almost repulsed. Like he darted away.
Sense.
Yeah, he darted away from my table as soon as I was like, yeah, it's a guy in a crappy gorilla costume chopping up with bananas. And he was just kind of like, oh, good luck with that, and just like skedaddled away. And it was like, really? I couldn't get him on the hook, huh?
I mean, but for his age, though, then he should kind of get it with movies like, and it's in your film, you know, all these are pictured, I think, like VHS or DVD or whatever. Schlock, got, you know, King Kong versus Godzilla, the movie Ape, that's the A.P, you know, I mean, all of these are guys in a costume. I mean,
I don't know.
You know, and Schlock is regular size. He's like a person size. He's not like a giant monster.
Yeah, that we watched that movie before we started writing the script. That was sort of our like initiation to like crappy ape movies, and like I had always I'd been doing the riffing stuff for years, but Psycho Ape was my first movie, my first feature film. And so we wanted to sort of just get schlock out of the way because that was John Landis's first film.
Yeah. But, and he played Schlock.
He did. And like Rick Baker did the costume and everything. But we wanted to watch that to sort of be like, okay, this is what he did in his first movie. It was a crappy ape movie. Let's perfect or go nuts with everything that he attempted to do, when he was 21 in 1970. And that's why there's that scene in Psycho Ape of Nancy playing fetch with the banana peel, with her dog and the ape, and like the dog and the ape are like running and grabbing the banana peel and bringing it back to her. That's that scene out of Schlock when the one woman is playing fetch with the ape and a stick. So that's our homage to that movie.
I love the dog. I love the scene where the dog is supposed to be like attacking Psycho Ape, but he clearly just wants to play.
Yeah, that was our test shoot. Before we started actually filming the movie, we wanted to do a day of test shooting to see what would this movie look like? What's the costume going to look like on camera? Is it going to look as funny as we think it's going to look? And so the test shoot was just the ape meeting the dog, but Matthew just ran up to the ape costume, and I guess he liked the smell of the fur and was humping my roommate. And that scene in the movie was the very first thing that we filmed for Psycho Ape, and it wasn't even intended to be in the movie. It was just we were getting footage to see like what's this movie going to look like. So then when we later were in production, we wrote a scene around that footage, so that we gave ourselves an excuse to use it.
Did you care that you could tell that it was a guy in a suit, that it was,
no.
that you could see the separation between the hand and like the arm or the neck?
We wanted that.
I mean, where something like in Schlock, it was, they wanted it to be an ape,
No, we didn't want anything convincing. We don't want anything convincing. That's the whole point. We wanted it to be stupid and bad and cheesy on purpose. It's all on purpose.
I love your scenes of the kind of Austin Powers type stuff with them go dancing and all that type of stuff. I love that. And I'm going to ask you why you chose to do it. I'm going to tell you first, I did a film called Skull Evil, and it's now up on YouTube, but I could not figure out when I wrote it in the script, scene to scene seemed to work. When I shot it and was editing it, I'm like, these aren't working. This is like a jump cut. This doesn't work. And I think I had just watched Austin Powers with them doing the go-go thing with the camera moving back and forth. I said, well, what if I did that with skeletons? Because people get into a mist, they turn into a skeleton. And I thought, well, what if I did that? If I had like a green mist of the skeleton and I just took my camera and just did the whole in and out, back and forth with the skeleton, and then I could put some crazy hypnotic music on it in between each scene.
Yeah.
And it worked. And so it kind of lends it that kind of cheesy sci-fi 50s look, but it's because I failed as a filmmaker and an editor that I couldn't make these scenes fit right. So I had to make up an excuse. Now, why did you do it in yours? Yours looks 1,000 times better than mine. Mine's just a skeleton up against a wall. Yours is like a production.
Well, we wanted to have scene transitions because we knew that we had a bunch of randomized scenes, but we know that not all of them flow into each other. Some of them are very isolated. It's just like a random kill scene here, a random kill scene there. And we knew that we needed some kind of scene transition for these specific parts. Same thing. I just happened to binge the entire Austin Powers trilogy again, like during production. And I was just kind of like, let's just do this. That's all it is basically just, hey, I watched Austin Powers last night. We should do what they did.
I actually like yours better than Austin Powers. There seems to be more creativity because Austin Powers just kind of seemed to do what I did. which was they just put people into a room, had them dancing, and then the camera zooms in and out and goes back and forth. Your guys are on a green screen. You got all these effects going. You got all these visual effects going. It's I actually think it's better than what the Austin Powers guys did.
Thank you. You know, that was our the same guy who does the artwork and stuff for us. He did most of the green screen stuff. He's really good. And he also did our opening credits.
Is there any problem during that of people doing stuff? Like, is there like, no, I'm not going to do this in front of a green screen, you know, like you had Kansas in a bikini throughout the whole thing. Now with these days, you know, did she have a problem with that? Was she okay with that, knowing what it was?
No, she had no problems at all. I went to the store and I bought a couple different bikinis, and I was like, out of these ones, you know, you pick which one you like, you know, whatever one feels comfortable on you, that's the one we're going to go with. You know, doesn't matter to me. We just wanted, like, you know, a girl in a bikini, you know, go dancing in front of a green screen. And it's like, you know, I was hoping she would go with the yellow one just to fit, you know, the color scheme of the wig and and
banana and all that. Yeah.
You know, I was hoping she would lean towards that one. So but I mean, she picked it on her own, because I had another one that it was more like stripes, like 4th of July sort of theme, American flag sort of. But yeah, she went with the yellow one, and so we just went with that. But she was never, it matched. I think she knew that was the better one to go with because it matched. But she was never opposed to really anything that we asked of her, and it's not like we were asking the world of her or anything. And you know, a lot of the lines she just improvised, and we kept them. You know.
Well, and I would assume that with her being a fan of the Monkees and liking stuff of that time period, that she knew exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so it's so that's good. So what overall, I mean, you're doing the Rift stuff, you're doing like the 2 Troma stuff, you're doing this stuff. What all of a sudden made you just say, I want to do a film called Psycho Ape, and this is the story?
A couple years ago, I had this dream where I was following my friend, like I was filming him wearing the ape costume, and he was wielding like a giant butcher knife over his head, like obscenely large, like something out of like Itchy and Scratchy, you know. And he was just chasing some girl, and I woke up, and because of the extremely large butcher knife, I thought of Psycho because Norman Bates and his giant butcher knife. And I thought, you know, Psycho Ape, that's a title for a movie. And like this was like 2017, and we didn't start shooting until 2019. But, you know, I posted like that title on Facebook. People thought it was funny, you know, and I wrote a brief sort of just, it wasn't even like really a treatment or anything. It was just sort of like a one line, like a guy in a crappy gorilla costume goes around killing people and stuff. And that was really all it was. And people really seemed to gravitate towards it and thought it was really funny. But then a couple months later, I was hanging out with my buddy, and we were just having a couple of drinks at a bar, and we came up with the whole slumber party massacre scene. We didn't know if it was going to be like the beginning of the movie or in like the middle of the movie, or if it was going to be the climax of the movie. We just had that scene kind of like written where you have a bunch of girls who are playing teenagers, but we wanted to have them all in their like, you know, early to mid 20s, but you know, they're all trying to play off the fact that they're like 16 or something. But have them having a slumber party, and like one of their boyfriends shows up dressed
who's 30.
Yeah, who's even older. Who's dressed in a gorilla costume and tries to like scare them at the slumber party. You know, we rip off his mask and show that it's just like one of their boyfriends, and they get mad and kick him out. But then while he's outside, he gets jumped by the ape, and the ape kills him and steals his ape costume, and then goes inside the slumber party. The girls think that it's the boyfriend again. And so they rip off the ape mask to reveal another ape mask. And that was the first scene that we wrote for Psycho Ape in like 2017. And we were like, oh man, like that is really funny. Like we got to do that.
Well, and if the girls keep saying this is a teenage slumber party, it's going to get into our brain that it's a teenage slumber party. So they must be 16.
Yeah.
Because it's a teenage slumber party.
Not every girl in that scene was like 20. You know, we wanted adults for like the entire slumber party, but there are a couple girls in there who really were like 16 or 17, so they were age accurate. But we wanted, like, initially when I wrote it, you know, with my buddy, we wanted like full on like adults, you know, and we thought that'd be like funnier. But it ended up being sort of like a mishmash where Kansas is 22, but she looks really young, and so she kind of came off as, you know, okay, she could be a teenager in this scene maybe. And then some of the other girls opposite her, they actually had like braces and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, those are definitely teenagers. So it's like this weird mix of like 20-year-olds and actual 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds.
The ape, that plastic ape with like the moving arms, that Penny is holding. I owned that as a kid. I had that toy. I went, oh, I had that toy. I had that toy. And I constantly moved it because its arms go like way up here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's difficult when they hit the floor. I used to play with that all the time.
Yeah, that's like I had one when I was a kid too, but you know, I didn't have it anymore. So I went on eBay and I just typed in like vintage King Kong toy and I found it. And I bought it for like $20. I didn't realize that we were going to be using it so prominently in the film, but it kind of became like a signature prop, like for, you know, Nancy's character to just always have
it's throughout the film. Yeah.
That wasn't the original intention. It's just that's what ended up happening.
What was it at any point where, you know, with the actress, where Kansas is like, wait, where's my ape? I need my ape. Don't forget.
I think we always just had it, you know, like I just always made sure to have it on standby somewhere, you know, because whenever we would like change location or something or go somewhere else, we just had like a bag of props, you know, so stuff was never really out of place. We just kind of always knew where stuff was.
If you were to make a sequel to this, would we find out why she's so obsessed with apes? Because her friends are annoyed by it.
Yeah, no.
No.
We have a sequel kind of written, very loose, like outline, but it's more about just moving forward than going backwards.
Okay, so she just is. It's that simple.
Yeah. She just. We never really put any more thought into it other than she just likes apes.
And I noticed that this is throughout the movie, that it's like on a wall or it's constantly in the background. So you're kind of referencing your own movie.
Yeah.
So why did you reference your own film? It'd almost be like if John Carpenter put a Halloween poster up while filming Halloween.
That's a Spaceballs joke. It's you know how in Spaceballs, halfway through the movie, they go into the closet and they grab a VHS copy of Spaceballs.
Oh yeah, they pop it in, yeah.
So they can watch and fast forward ahead to like see how they could catch up with like Lone Star, you know. And then it freezes, and now they're like watching themselves in the now moment and everything.
Yeah, as their heads are going back up. Yeah.
Yep. And it's on like an infinite, you know, amount of televisions on the screen. That's that. That's what we were trying to do with Spaceballs.
So is Psycho Ape in a Psycho Ape world because there's a poster of Psycho Ape? Like, is it its own universe?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's just a joke. It's just a gag, you know, just something that like, because we filmed the slumber party scene pretty early on, the poster was on the wall. Like we forgot to take it down, and it's in like all of the shots. And so then we doubled down on that. And so in subsequent scenes, we just would stick the poster in the background again. So it's sort of also like a cover up of like, we didn't forget to take the poster down in that one scene. Like, look, it's in multiple scenes. So now it's a gag.
That's what you have to do. Yeah, is you got to take that I don't know, kind of happy mistake in a way, and bring it up again, because then if you don't, it just becomes a mistake.
Right. It kind of was just an honest mistake to begin with. But then we were like, how can we use that like in a positive way? And so we were like, Spaceballs. Let's do the Spaceballs thing.
Yeah, because so when you're thinking of at the very beginning, what was your like post-production like then? Because if you're not planning on a Reagan joke being made, if you're not planning on this Psycho Ape poster, what did you plan on? Like how long was pre-production?
I think we wrote the script for maybe about 2 or 3 months. And by script, I just kind of mean like a 11-page bullet pointed outline with character scenes and parody scenes. Like we knew specifically we were going to open with the Slumber Party Massacre sequence. Like we knew that was going to be the beginning. We knew we needed a scene post Slumber Party Massacre introducing Dr. Zoomis. We knew that our kind of like structure of the movie was going to kind of be like Halloween, like, but not really, but sort of. So we just kind of followed like that. And we also knew there was going to be a big King Kong climax at the end. We knew that there was going to be an Inglourious Bastards moment with, her hiding the ape under the table. Like we knew we had all of these scenes, and then we sort of just went crazy and filmed a whole bunch of like random kill scenes and sprinkled them like throughout the movie. And then once we had certain scenes in order and we realized like, oh, we have gaps. So let's fill this gap with a scene. So let's write that later. And oh, here's another gap. So let's write a scene for that gap. It was just a very loose way of making a movie, very improv. Like you can tell when you watch the movie too, like it, but that's the whole point of it was we just wanted to make a very sort of loosely structured comedy that didn't take itself seriously at all. Like we just wanted to wing it and see what we could make.
Did you know while writing it, oh, we're going to shoot this in Michigan, we're going to shoot this in New York, that type of thing?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. We knew obviously everything that takes place in New York, we knew was going to take place in New York. We were going to have subway gags. We had all those written. We were going to have like a hot dog vendor doing stuff. We had all that written. We knew that we were going to go on a ferry and try to get shots of the Statue of Liberty. We knew that we were going to get shots of the Empire State Building. So we knew all of that stuff. And anything that was like interior, we knew we could film that in Michigan because like the slumber party sequence takes place in my old apartment. Anything basically inside is just kind of like my old apartment, like set dressed in different ways or like different angles to make it look like it's a different location, but it's just the same spot. A lot of the outside stuff, like the girl reading the magazine about serial killers, like under a tree and then gets her leg cut in half. That was just in my sort of courtyard in my old apartment building. A lot of the stuff was just my old apartment building or Greg's house, like the woods and everything, or like the scene with the dog humping the ape. That was Greg's house, just right in his backyard. So we would just kind of jump back and forth. Like that's all the Michigan stuff. The only thing that there's 2 scenes that are in New York, but you don't really know that they're in New York. I mean, you can maybe take an educated guess just because of like the graffiti on the background. But there's like the scene where the ape confronts the guy and they both have bananas. And then the guy taunts the ape and shoves the banana in his face and he rips the guy's arm off. Like that was in New York. But like we're not like in the movie, the characters haven't made their way to New York yet. That was shot in New York. And then
well, Naked Cowboy. Okay, well then let's go into production then.
Yeah.
So like the Naked Cowboy guy, he's in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was one of
So
the first things that we filmed. As soon as we got off the subway and we're walking up the stairs, Naked Cowboy was right there. And it's like, wow, okay, well, welcome to New York. So, you know, we did have like, what are those things? Not, is it a waiver or is it the thing that people sign to, you know, let us use their
like a
image?
release
Yeah, it was a
or
release. We had release forms. We did have release forms. We had him sign one. We didn't pay him anything, but I don't know if he even thought we would ever even like finish the movie. He's probably so used to people like filming him on the street and then like their project never really like coming to fruition that he did just kind of like he signed a waiver, but he just, you know, kind of shrugged us off, did his little dance, and then we just, you know, moved on. But that was the first thing that we filmed in New York was Naked Cowboy.
Well, and so how did that? Because like I said, now let's get into the production of the thing. Is you're in all these different places, New York, Michigan, all these different places. Obviously, there's green screens involved in some of this, but how did permits work? How did the police work? I mean, you're walking around with a guy in a gorilla suit. I mean, granted, it's New York, maybe nobody noticed, but
no one cared.
They didn't care. Like as you're following the two, and I want to get their names correctly, Filler sisters.
Yeah.
Are when that just seems to be one long tracking shot,
yeah,
like around a park.
Mm-hmm.
And some people do look into the camera. There's one guy who's very curious or something. And but nobody seems to be doing the hi mom.
No one cares. No one cares.
They didn't. You had no problem with a psycho ape. And what about all the blood and all that stuff and body parts?
There was that scene where Dr. Zoomis discovers the corpse on the ground, and the guy has like half bananas all like stuck in his body and stuff, and like a banana peel on his forehead, and he's covered in blood. That was New York. We did it like, you know, right on the sidewalk, and I poured fake blood all over the place, and you know, we had like, you know, a dozen bananas that we broke in half and stuck all over them. But we filmed that scene really quick, and then we just hopped in our car and drove away.
So the blood was left there. It was just, you know, like kind of like a human, you know.
Yeah, human's outline in the blood. Yeah, but we felt comfortable doing that. At least I did, because first of all, it's New York. There's worse things than fake blood on the ground. In that particular neighborhood, like one street over, the entire neighborhood, like the entire block smelled like urine. So I think it was just like a place where bums hang out and just pee all over the place. So it's like our like fake blood that will wash away, like if it rained, is no worse than that alley that just completely stank like pee.
Great, it's their giant toilet.
Yeah. So what we're doing is not as bad as one block over. And then also in New York, the curb for all these neighborhoods, these streets, there's just bags of trash, you know? So you got these black garbage bags that just line the curb, like down entire blocks, and rodents get in there, and you can see bags like moving and stuff like that.
Oh, shit.
There's rats in there like eating, you know, old food, and there's cockroaches and stuff. Like you saw the one cockroach get stuck in the fake blood. Like that was the cockroach. It just wandered in there like an idiot and got stuck.
Well, because they'll eat anything. They'll do, you know, coffee grounds or cigarette butts or whatever it is. They'll just eat it. I love that shot. I'm like, oh, did they go find a cockroach? I hate cockroaches. So I'm an animal activist, but I hate cockroaches, man. I don't care.
It was nasty. We were packing up, like we were getting ready to leave that location and just take off. But this cockroach wandered into the blood, and its feet like got stuck in the blood. So that just was a random occurrence. Like we didn't plan that at all.
Like, get the camera.
Yeah. It was like, get the camera out, get that shot real quick and let's go. So that was just, we just left all that crap there. But it's like, again,
I would say poor cockroach, but I hate cockroaches. So
yeah, I mean, I think we flicked it out of because it was stuck. So someone, I think it was Greg, just flicked it out of the puddle, and so it flickered down the street. I don't know how far it happened there, but
and you're thinking, oh, we saved it, and then 2 seconds later, somebody stepped right on it.
Yeah, I got run over by a car. I don't know, but that was for that.
Yeah, it's interesting where certain cities you can just do things like or certain things are there that you don't think about. I know LA is very different, but like you're saying, you know, oh, nobody cared about a guy in an ape costume because it's New York.
Yeah.
Here in Vegas, we kind of have the same thing because of all the shows.
Yeah.
So if you see a woman walking down the street dressing like she's from, I don't know, the Beatles Love Show or Cirque du Soleil or something like that, you don't even think about it. You just go, oh, she just got off work,
Right.
you know, and she's still in costume or whatever it is. LA to a point, I guess, would be that with like Mann's Chinese Theater, with, you know, or Grauman's Chinese Theater, that it's Spider-Man is outside, or
yeah,
or
it's like a Hollywood Boulevard. It's just all these
yeah,
people dressed in costume wanting to take pictures with people and get paid.
yeah, and in so certain areas you can get away, and I don't think anybody would notice. In my film Maximus 2, there was a line in it where one of the characters goes, oh, well, the killer wore a Santa outfit, that's weird, and she goes, it's Las Vegas, nobody would know.
Right.
They wouldn't even bat an eye at it. And it's true. And with that Skull Evil thing, kind of like your Roach thing, is I was filming a skeleton by a dumpster, and it's got its clothes on, and like these cops came over and said, what are you doing? Well, one, it's private property, I can do whatever I want, I pay rent here. But I said, oh, I'm doing this for a school project, because that's obviously what you say, I'm a student. Right. And then they leave you alone. But I'm filming the skeleton, and all of a sudden a pigeon walks from behind it, and I'm like, keep going, don't move, John, keep going, and then it's out of frame, and I cut it, and that's the last shot in the movie. Is all the humans are dead, they're all skeletons except for pigeons. This one pigeon is walking around at the end, and it just happened to be there. It just happened to land right behind it, off screen, and then walk into screen and off screen in like a perfect line. Sometimes like your cockroach or a pigeon or something, it just happens. It's just perfect. Yeah, or a guy in a gorilla suit riding a subway, where I think somebody would be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Nobody, yeah. In the subway scenes, actually, like where the characters are sitting, like Nancy and the ape and Zoomis, there were other people sitting there. We didn't want them, we didn't tell them what we were doing, but as soon as we sort of sat down and like started filming, they got up and just went to the other side of the subway car, because they didn't want to be involved in what we were doing. So they just moved. We didn't ask them to move. It could be
some weird sex thing. You know, maybe you're making some weird porno with a girl having sex with an ape.
You don't know. Yeah, you just never know. But they wanted nothing to do with us. And so you see like maybe one or two people still kind of like hanging out in the background, but everybody else got up and left. You know, they went to the other side. So if you were taking the camera and just panned it over to the other side of the subway car, then there would have been like 15 people on that side.
I'm glad people stayed, because that's production value. Those are extras.
Yeah, like you see one guy, he's got his headphones in. I don't even think he cared or didn't even know what was going on. He was in his own little world.
Well, where the two girls are in the shark suits, arguing about Pixar, which I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? Is this scripted or is this totally ad-libbed? There is the guy who's up on his little balcony.
That was my neighbor. Yeah, that was my neighbor.
Just hanging out, you know, and I thought that was funny. So I actually made a note on that, is explain that scene. How, because that was a long scene, and people from behind the cameras are coming forward, and they're talking to people behind the camera, like what film is better. How real was that, and how much of that was scripted?
Oh, it was entirely improvised. It was just an argument that got out of control, but my cameraman never stopped filming. Because initially we had those girls who were friends of mine who they wanted to be in Psycho Ape, and so we were like, okay, let's do a random like trick or treat kill scene. And so they showed up. I gave them one of my shark costumes, and they had brought one themselves, so they could be like trick-or-treating like shark girls. And we didn't really have any like dialogue for them. We didn't really have much of an idea, other than like they're going to be trick-or-treating and the ape is going to answer the door and kill them. But then the younger girl was like, I know the monologue from Ratatouille, and none of us really knew what that meant. Like, I'd seen Ratatouille, but I couldn't remember them like the monologue. I didn't know there was a famous monologue. And she was like, yeah, I know the whole thing. Yeah. So in that one shot, it's just one long tracking shot. she recited the entire Ratatouille monologue in one take, and that's what we went with.
That's dedication.
Then they just started arguing. Like they are sisters in real life. And so I guess it's not uncommon for the two of them to get into arguments like this, heated debates.
So so it was real. They were actually arguing that
yeah,
like Ratatouille is better or not better than Toy Story.
Yeah, it was just the two of them having a sisterly argument for real. And they didn't stop. I mean, the initial,
that's a good cameraman too. That you know.
Yeah, he started doing the tracking shots, like going around them in a circle, without ever like hitting stop on the camera. And I mean, the initial cut of that scene, or the initial shot, it was probably like 12 minutes long.
Oh wow!
They just kept going and going and going, and then we chopped it down to like 7 minutes. And now it's like 5 or 5.5, something like that.
It's a long scene, but it's a crazy scene because it's like I'm watching this going, is this a real fight? Are they actually?
Yeah, it's real.
Because the one girl with Ratatouille, I agree with her. And I've said this about current movies where she's like, you're told it's a good movie, so you like it. And I've said that about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I've said this about Scream. I've said this about many films that have come out within like probably like the last year, maybe 2, where people are like, oh my, but of course I'm victim to this because I saw Top Gun Maverick and thought it was the best movie of the year. But I also worked at a movie theater that played Top Gun. Top Gun was a very big deal to us. And my friend joined the Navy because of it. So there is that, but I have to admit I'm a little bit of a hypocrite. But it's true, is if you're told to like something like, let's say, Ghostbusters Afterlife, because it's Ghostbusters, you will like it, no matter how bad it is. And I liked Ghostbusters Afterlife, but there are so many pointless things in it that I don't know why so many people liked it. So I completely agreed with her on that, even though I haven't seen all the Toy Story movies. But I think I've seen up to maybe 3 or 4. But I agree with her. And I thought that I liked that she said that, because like, wow, somebody else who agrees with me, because I don't know if Ratatouille is considered to be that great of a Pixar.
It is. I mean, I think it is considered like top tier Pixar. It's just that it's not like recent anymore. It came out in like 2007. So there's been a lot more Pixar movies since then. And it's also one of those kind of forgotten Pixar movies, I think, because it didn't spawn a sequel or anything, unlike The Incredibles, or there's like 4 Toy Stories, there's 3 Cars movies. So it never launched a franchise. So it's just kind of one of those weird Pixar movies that didn't, like, nothing more came of it, But that doesn't mean it's not a good movie. I still think it's a good movie. Even though I've only seen it the one time, it's still a good movie.
I've never seen it.
Oh.
I've never seen it at all, and I know of it from trailers and people talking about it, and I think that's kind of when I fell out of the whole Pixar thing, maybe around that time.
Yeah, I think during that time, they were trying to maybe, because like I think Cars 2 had come out, and like I've never seen Cars 2, but I did not like Cars 1. And I think Cars 2 was really apparently supposed to be really bad. So I think they were trying to find themselves again. So they did like Ratatouille and they did WALL-E and stuff, and WALL-E was pretty good.
Yeah, WALL-E was good. Yeah.
I think Ratatouille may have been outshined by WALL-E, because WALL-E actually had like this environmental message and everything like that. And Ratatouille is, it's a good movie, but it doesn't have that sort of like big sort of worldly message that like some of these other movies do. But that doesn't mean it's not a good movie. It is a good movie.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's like if you're like the Invincibles, you want to be one.
Yeah.
So you want to identify with them. Even for something like Cars, I mean, people collect cars, people race cars. I mean, there's a reason why there's 200 Fast and Furious movies. There, is that people could say that's my car right there. That's, my uncle used to own a big piece of junk, tow truck or something. And maybe Ratatouille, maybe restaurant people.
It's a restaurant. Yeah. It's a niche thing for people who maybe work in the restaurant industry, or I don't know. I mean, it's still a good movie though. Like, there's no doubt about it. But
I mean, I don't doubt that it's good. I mean, I don't think I dislike.
I'm still like team Toy Story though. Like I'm personally in that camp. But I still think that like I like Wall-E, I like Wall-E a lot, and I like
Oh, I like, yeah.
And a lot of their newer stuff is really good too. But
not everything can be a hit. Not everything can
be,
and you will have that hit that will kind of get pushed aside. So,
but yeah, that was entirely a real argument that I thought they would lose steam after about 5 minutes, but then it turned into like 10 minutes. And then eventually you see me step in and I'm like waving my arms around like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, she calls you and I'm just like, wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. We're breaking that wall again here. And like, what's going on?
Then you see my roommate walk in. He's in the ape costume, but he's just not wearing the ape mask. But like that's him just like out of costume. And then you have the guy and the girl who they are the couple who got shish kebabs when they're making.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the long banana. Yeah.
Yeah, we filmed those two scenes on the same day. So that's why they emerged from behind a tree covered in fake blood still, because we just shot their scene like 15 minutes ago.
That's funny. Yeah, and all of that stuff works. It all works I think if you went into this like schlock, no, this ape costume is not going to work. He has to look like an ape, or, if the ape is going around killing people with a banana that's this big, but yet he sticks it through the ears of people and ends up being, and it's this big. If you're like, no, this banana will not do that. It's too small. You wouldn't have this movie. It wouldn't exist. You have.
I wanted the crappiest ape costume in the world. Like, we sort of half committed to him even like wearing like the monkey feet that slip on his shoes. I would say you see his sneakers more often than you see the monkey feet. Like there are some shots where you see the monkey feet, and that was probably like early on in production when we would like stick to having the monkey feet. But what would happen is that the straps would get loose and they would just fall off anyway. So I was like, forget it. Let's just not use the monkey feet anymore. So we stopped bringing them to like locations for shoots. But we did have it during the beach scene at the end, where there's a close up of my roommate. He's wearing like the plastic monkey feet over his like human bare feet in the sand. So like that's a gag. But for the most part, we knew that it's like this movie is going to be cheap as hell, and we're going to really lean into that, and that's going to be part of the jokes, just how cheap and crappy the special effects are going to be in this movie.
Well, and now with like the beach, were people confused about why is there a guy in a costume on the beach?
No one confronted us, and we didn't tell anybody what we were doing. We just showed up at the beach, and we showed up kind of like before a lot of those people to set up the camera and everything and get ready. And then people started like sitting down around us. So now we're like, in the middle of a bunch of people on the beach. They're playing volleyball. There's girls tanning. And now we're kind of looking around like we kind of like unintentionally got, an audience now. We just happened to pick a part of the beach because we got there early in the morning and just sort of waited. And then people started to come. And then by noon, we were surrounded by a bunch of people. So that's when we're like, okay, it's ready to shoot. And so everyone got in a costume and they took off running down the beach. And you can see as they're running, all of their heads like turning and like watching everybody run, because they didn't know what was going on. They didn't know where the camera was. They just saw people running, and it was like, a guy in safari gear and, a girl wearing this crazy yellow wig. And then of course a guy in an ape costume, but we never said anything to anybody. Nobody on the beach knew what we were doing. And then we just packed up our equipment and left. And when we were never like, hey, thanks for participating. we never did anything like that.
And they, they probably wouldn't, I mean, the mini DV camera is not that big. You know,
Greg's camera was pretty bulky, and we couldn't really hide it very well. Where we were like, like there's the part where the ape goes inside of a grocery store and he's looking at all the bananas for sale. We got kicked out of Meyer for doing that. They wanted to confiscate our tape too, but we told them no, and we just left.
Oh, good. Yeah. They don't. Yeah, no, I would just run with that.
Yeah.
So, why did you filmed in front of a Walgreens too?
Yeah, that was actually, I used to work there, so.
Oh, so they were cool. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't too concerned about that one. But it was the grocery store where, like, we tried to disguise, like, we tried to put a bunch of groceries in the shopping cart and then hide the camera in the shopping cart. But because the camera is so big and bulky that you were able to immediately spot it, we thought we'd get away with it because it was Halloween. It was like Halloween 2019. And it's like, there's tons of other people in costumes. Why did the ape costume stick out like a sore thumb? Like, what the hell? You know, look at all these other people dressed up. Like, there's Woody and like Bo Peep. There's Darth Vader. Like, the ape, like, of course, the ape draws the most attention. And so someone came up to us and they were like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like, oh, we're just filming real quick. Because they saw the camera sitting there. They knew what we were doing. Because it was like, we had it at the top of the shopping cart, you know, that like folds in. We had it there, but we had put like bags of salad on top of it to sort of like disguise it. But they still saw it. And they were like, we're going to need that tape. And we were just like, no, you know, like, and so we just pushed the shopping cart aside and left.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I would, because I would book, I would just get out of there because security guards can't do anything. I mean, I even asked a couple of cops about that too. They're just there. I mean, you could punch a security guard, he can, obviously put assault charges on you, but it's not like punching a cop.
Well, it's like, you cannot just grab my camera from me. Like, you're not going to be able to do that. Like, you can ask for the camera.
Well, it's First Amendment rights. So
you can tell us to stop filming, which we did, but you can't have our property. So we just took off.
Right.
And then that was the second time that we were told to leave from a location. Because the other time was when we were in New York, we were filming at that big fountain. That's a big famous fountain. That's the same fountain that Bill Murray is like hopping around in the first Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we wanted to film there for that reason. But as soon as we brought the camera out, like, a security guard beelined towards us. Yeah, it was just one guy, and he was like, I'm going to need your tape, or, just same spiel. And we were like, we're not going to give you our tape. Like, forget it. Because he was like, you need a permit to film here and all this other stuff. And then we were like arguing with the security guard because there were other people there who had their cell phones out and they were taking video of the fountain. And so we were like, what's the difference between us filming the fountain and them filming the fountain? And he was like, well, you're, because the guy, we had, the guy in an ape costume. And he's like, well, you're clearly like making a movie, and they're doing a home video. And it's like, well, who's to say they don't take their home video footage and put it into a movie? You don't know.
But who says that that's home movie footage? I mean, the guy could be making a movie on his phone. That's a drama or a comedy that doesn't involve a psycho ape.
Right. It could be anything. He's making assumptions. He made assumptions based on the fact that we had a guy in an ape costume. So clearly whatever we were doing was wrong. You know what I mean? Right. He already that was his logic, was you have this big bulky camera and you have a guy in an ape costume. So immediately whatever you're doing is worse than whatever that guy is doing with a cell phone. Like, he just, that was just his assumption.
Right.
There.
Yeah, I can say a lot about cops these days and security people. So,
Yeah.
And I want to make a correction on myself. I did say Penny. I meant to say Nancy. Nancy.
Oh,
I want to make that, so sorry about that. So now one last question on production, and then we'll get into post. So I told you before we filmed this that I was upset at Nancy at the very end for leaving with Dr. Zoomis, not Loomis, but
Nope.
Zoomis, and that she just left Psycho Ape there dead or dying, or what's up with that woman? You know, just man.
We weren't thinking about character motivation. It was just that was a wrap for filming. I think everything in New York. I think that was one of the last shots of filming in New York was the two of them holding their hands and walking off into the sunset, and then we added like the iris effect in post. But that was just like, you know, we filmed this shot of like her running towards the camera, like there's the joke if we pan down from the Empire State Building.
I laughed at that. I thought that was hilarious as the camera slowly pans down and you could just hear her and running down the whole building. I'm like, are they going to show her do the whole thing? And you did. It was quite funny.
Yeah. And then because we just had her waiting like a couple of steps, you know, away from the camera. So by the time the camera panned down, she could just run into the shot. So we did that a couple of times to time it right. But then we were just like, okay, well, what do we do here? Like, what do we say? What's our dialogue? And so then I think we just all thought of like, well, at the very last minute, let's do a, you know, Wizard of Oz reference. We're not in Kansas anymore. Plus, that's layered because the actress's name is Kansas. So it works for two jokes. And I think it was probably Bill who suggested, like, I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship because Casablanca, there was shoehorned that in there too. And then they just walked off together and that was the end of it. But there really was not much thoughts in terms of like her abandoning the ape. It was just like, that's a wrap, you know. That's we have a 12-hour
says
trip.
A lot about her character, I can tell you that. So
you know, it took like 12 hours or 10 hours to drive from New York back to Michigan the next day. So we were like, that's a wrap on today. Let's go get some food and go to bed, you know, because we have a long road trip ahead of us.
Yeah, that I thought that was pretty funny. Now, would the now, because of 9/11, obviously, we don't have the World Trade Center. And in the remake of King Kong, Kong is on the World Trade Center. The original Kong, he's on Empire. Yeah. So if 9/11, let's say, never happened, the World Trade Center was still there, would you have switched? Or would it still be the classic Empire?
No, it would have been the classic black and white King Kong. I'm actually not a big fan of Peter Jackson's King Kong. I think it's way too long. And I think you could chop out like a good like 90 minutes out of that thing and have a better movie.
Well, what about the one from the 70s where he is?
I like that one.
With Jessica Lange. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one.
Jeff Bridges. Yeah.
I grew up with those two, the 31 or 33 version, and I think I grew up with the 76 remake. But I also grew up with the sequel, King Kong Lives, which no one really like knows about.
Yeah, the canon film, King Kong. Yeah, where they give him the heart transplant.
Yeah. That movie's fun as hell.
And that's an amazing film. So we're all primates. So
I mean, it's a cheesy, dumb movie, but so what? You know, it's perfect, like giant ape. It's a great giant ape monster movie. Like it just is. You know, it's not looking to be some sophisticated movie or anything like that. Like it's stupid. And I don't know. I like it. I like it a lot. But those were the three I grew up on. And then, you know, in 2005, I'm a big fan of Peter Jackson, but I'm a big fan of Peter Jackson, his early career with, you know, Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles and Dead Alive and The Frighteners. Lord of the Rings stuff is not really for me. Because those movies are 3 hours long, if not longer, CGI fests, and I never read the books, so I'm more of a horror splatter guy. And so his second half of his career with like the Hobbit movies and these big CGI, expensive, you know, $200 million budgets, they're not my Peter Jackson movies. They're just not.
He's very much about throwing everything in, along with the kitchen sink, the sofa, the bed, the living room. I mean, it's especially because you mentioned his King Kong is the DVD, or maybe now even the Blu-ray if it's out, is expanded, is even bigger, and I think that's him. I think now, kind of like with what he did with the Hobbit stuff, is he's taking everything. I mean, every single thing he could find on the Hobbits, every single thing he could find on Kong, and putting it into one movie to kind of make the ultimate movie of whatever that is. And it does come out too long. I bought the DVD of his King Kong, the expanded version. I'm an hour into it and we're not even on Kong Island yet.
Yeah.
And I ended up turning it off because I never saw it in the theater. But I mean, I'll go back to it one day. But it's like, fuck, come on. Why are we not even on the island yet?
Cause I used to have the DVD as well. It was the extended cut. The first disc ends when we get to Skull Island, and that's already, like, imagine that, like, a full DVD disc only has the first half of King Kong. That's 90 minutes. And that's a full feature at this point, and they're just arriving at Skull Island. That is insane. So whenever I would like get the urge to watch the movie again, I wouldn't even bother with the first disc.
You just put in disc 2, yeah.
Put in disc 2, because disc 1 ends where the crew are like getting to the island, and then they get captured by the natives and they're about to get like beheaded, you know, but then they like talk their way out of that situation. But it ends on a cliffhanger. And then disc 2 is them talking their way out of the situation. And so it's like, dude, throw disc 1 in the trash and just always start at disc 2.
Can you imagine if this was in the theater as parts 1 and 2, and like part 1 ends with her strapped up and you just hear Kong?
Yeah.
Like the roar, and then it says to be continued. The audience would freak the fuck out. It's like, wait, we waited this whole movie? We don't even see Kong? Why is this called King Kong?
It's seriously like a full 90 minutes. It's like 90 minutes before we see King Kong. And I mean, I know that's just for the extended cut. I don't know how long it takes for the regular theatrical version.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen the extended cut. But I was so pissed because I was like, disc 1 is over? Because it says, please put in disc 2. And it's like, oh my God, like I've been sitting here for 90 minutes already and there's no King Kong yet. So like, I'm not the biggest fan of Peter Jackson, like post like the year 2000, I don't really, like I like his Lovely Bones kind of. I've read the book and there's so much missing that like, that's the kind of situation where I feel like a director's cut is warranted, because the book was so like rich and dense, but to make a theatrical movie out of it, he did have to like trim a lot out of there. But knowing Peter Jackson, he probably filmed that stuff. Like it exists somewhere, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, most likely. Yeah, I never read the book for that, and I never saw the movie because I heard it was bad. Just like I never watched. I didn't see the Hobbits, all 3 Hobbits. I never saw those in the theater. I still haven't watched them actually. I plan on buying them because they're the extended ones, and I'll put them, I don't know, in front of or in back of Lord of the Rings, I guess. But yeah, so let's actually get to, because then I'll let you leave. Just post-production. What was post-production on this like? And then we'll find out where we can find, where we can buy these movies. So how was that like?
Well, post-production was all done by basically Greg. He cut the movie because he shot the movie. So he would take the footage home to his house and he would upload it, all that mini DV tape directly into his computer. And he cut it on like Final Cut Pro 7. He cut the entire movie. I have Final Cut Pro X. So the footage would have never been compatible on my computer. Like he would have never been able to like send me anything like a scene that he shot for me to like tinker with or anything, because the 7 and X are just not compatible with each other. So he had the daunting task of having to just edit the entire movie himself. But I would go over there and sort of like see how he was doing, and we would navigate scenes and like structure in a way together. And like the 2020 pandemic hit, so he had lots of downtime in quarantine to really like finesse the edit and to really cut it down to this hour-long feature that we wanted to make. We were still missing some scenes that we wanted to film because there were still gaps. Like at the end, the Shawshank parody, we filmed that in like August 2020. Like we snuck out of quarantine and like filmed that real quick. That's why I'm in that shot, because we couldn't really ask anybody else to participate, because we were supposed to be in quarantine. But, I'm a security guard with the long hair who gets a banana in his tailpipe,
It happens.
That was my Hitchcock cameo. And then he is playing the warden who throws the banana through the Raquel Welch poster.
I thought that was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his cameo. Because it was just the two of us filming, We didn't have anybody else that could like come over and help, because like we were supposed to be, in COVID quarantine. So that was one of the last things we filmed. And some of the like green screen stuff of the ape like reacting to bullet hits and stuff like during the King Kong sequence at the end. So we put a big green screen like on the outside of his garage door and had the ape just like mimic being shot by bullets. And so then he turned that footage into like the end of the movie when you see the ape getting shot by CGI bullets and you see like CGI squib hits and stuff. Because we actually toyed with the idea of like taking the suit and putting it on a mannequin at a gun range and asking the trained professionals to just obliterate the thing.
Oh my.
We wanted to do that. We were gonna, but because it was COVID, there was no way we were going to be able to pull that off.
Wow.
There wouldn't have been gun ranges open,
Right.
So we just dropped that idea entirely. I thought it would have been cool to have like close-ups of like the chest just shot up by real bullets,
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But we just never did it. And but once we had, those shots of him like reacting to the bullet hits and we added the CGI squib hits and we got the Shawshank scene out of the way, we were pretty much wrapped. So he spent the remainder of like August and September really editing like a final cut and sending me, final like, here's edit 1, here's edit 2, here's edit 3. I forget how many times he actually sent me a finished cut, but then it was basically like, you better like the next cut because I have to move to LA in a week. So we just kind of were like, okay, that one's good enough.
And so where can people find your work?
Well, I mean, all my Rainy Afternoons and Tromasterpiece Theater, that's on YouTube. YouTube.com/Jab Products, or you could just type in movies to watch on a rainy afternoon and click on my channel. Psycho Ape is available to stream on Amazon Prime, but I also sell DVDs on eBay. I also sell Rainy Afternoon collections on eBay as well. And I have like other Psycho Ape merchandise too now. There's like t-shirts available. I don't sell those, but there's this guy who he runs a company called Fast Custom Tees down in Texas. And I go through him where I sent him like an image. It's that same image that's on the DVD, like that artwork. And he prints those on t-shirts like on demand and sends them out to customers. And then I get a cut of the sale. Yeah, it's that image on a yellow t-shirt.
Okay.
And so then he actually prints the shirt, sends it out to the customer, and then he PayPal's me like a chunk of change from the sale. And then I recently acquired, there was a guy who wanted to license images from Psycho Ape, like screenshots from the movie, and he made trading cards.
Oh, so, that's cool.
Yeah, there are trading cards for Psycho Ape. I have about maybe a little less than 20 packs left. I have them on eBay right now. He went through and he took like 45 screenshots from the film and he made little like baseball cards out of it, and for a couple of them, if you flip them over, there's an image on the back. So if you join all of them together, it's like a puzzle piece, and you see like a behind the scenes image or something, when all the cards are kind of put together, which is kind of cool. But he took that upon himself to do that. You know, he ran a Kickstarter either last year or the year before, and he raised, you know, a pretty sizable amount of money to go into production of these trading cards. And so once he sent out all of the orders for the Kickstarter backers, he sent me the remainder. And it was about 30 packs. And I think I'm down to maybe like 18 or something like that. And so they're very limited edition, but they are like 45 screenshots from the movie with like a little joke at the bottom and everything like that. But, you know, that's kind of cool. I didn't think the movie would transition into that kind of, you know, merchandise.
Have you thought of like doing a riff on your own movie?
Not really, not for me. I tried submitting it to Riff Tracks, and I just never heard anything from them. I imagine they probably get dozens of submissions a day. You know what I mean? Every filmmaker, I'm sure, is probably like sending them their work. I think also because the movie's a comedy, Psycho Ape is already like so meta that I don't know if it would be like feasible to really riff on it unless you're like really like good at it, you know? Like I think the Riff Tracks guys could probably do it if they tried hard enough. But riffing my own work, that's like supposed to be a comedy first and foremost. I don't know if I don't know if that's worth trying. You know, I'd rather they do it than me.
Sure. Yeah, because you also got places out there like Red Letter Media. You got Bloodbath and Beyond, who's now Bloodbath TV also. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, I guess they could always check it out too. So
I have sent a DVD to Red Letter Media, but I just never heard anything back.
I have a VHS tape that a friend made a film called Maxim Zool with Adam West that is absolutely horrible. It's only come out on VHS. And I thought of mailing it to Red Letter Media just to have them maybe have it on their shelf. Yeah. Maybe one day they would pull it down, but I figured, no, you know what? I'm going to keep this. This film, it's only available on VHS. I'm going to keep it. So, you know, all right, man. Well, thank you. We're at that point, and I really appreciate it. I think that we pretty much covered a lot.
Yeah, this is probably
for a film that's
one of the longest interviews I've ever done.
Oh, wow. Yeah, for a film that's an hour and 4 minutes, we've gone a little over 2 hours. So
yeah,
which is typical for these things anyways. So
well, I mean, there was a lot to talk about, you know.
Oh yeah, and I like talking about this stuff. So, you know, it makes me appreciate the film even more once I know stuff about it. And I hope other people do.
That's kind of one of the, like, you know, because there's no commentary on the movie and because there's no special features, I mean, I think it's kind of fun that the movie sort of exists as this enigma where you don't know certain behind the scenes facts the way that, like, back in the day when you would rent a random movie from a video store and it was just like a VHS, and so you just watched it, but you didn't really know anything about it. Like, it's kind of cool to like not know anything about this movie, like where it came from and like why certain scenes are made. But I do also like, you know, commentaries myself. But I think it's kind of cool for my own project that there isn't like a commentary for it. You know?
Well, now you have one. So yeah. It's
well, this way people can watch these interviews and they can learn the tidbits this way, you know?
Right. Well, it's always interesting with these type of things because what was it for Plan 9 from Outer Space? The film is only like 70 minutes, but there's 2 documentaries that are based on it, and they're both like almost 2 hours. So the documentaries are longer than the film. So, but all right. So we're going to call that a wrap. And I really appreciate you coming, you know, on here. And yeah, hopefully we'll see more of Psycho Ape or, you know, Psycho Apes, Return of Psycho Ape, something like that. Yeah. That would be nice. Or whatever else you're doing in the future. So, oh, is there anything you want to plug? Anything that you know, but anything beyond what you've already talked about?
Well, I mean, I have kind of been in pre-production for about a year now, just like writing a thing. And like I got some money from Kickstarter, but I've been just having trouble getting it up off the ground. Um, just various things like cameraman quitting on me, even though we like started shooting the movie,
Oh,
and like that kind of sucks. Or like Michigan weather is very tricky. Some days it'll be like 80 degrees out, and then some days it'll snow, like or
oof.
rain, and we get washed out. But like I'm hoping to try to get it shot this summer. But it's called The Cult of Frankenstein, where it'll be uh, this like Manson family type cult, sort of like are squatting on like a farm, and the leader of the cult, who's supposed to be sort of like a Charles Manson type character, is enlisting his group to go off and like steal body parts from various morgues and stuff, because he wants to piece together his own like Frankenstein monster. They're obsessed with Frankenstein. They all wear like white robes and like crappy Halloween costume like Frankenstein masks with like the strings on the back. um and they piece together their own creation, and some of them even like sacrifice their own limbs like for the greater good and everything.
Oh, I like
So
that.
it's kind
Yeah.
of like it's like Midsommar or like Meets the Manson family. So they create their own monster, but it breaks free and takes off into the woods. And meanwhile, like the great 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 grand descendant of the original Dr. Frankenstein is creating his own army of monsters, and he's forcing them to like fight each other for his own amusement, but he also charges people admission to watch them like do like UFC monster fights. So he's got this army of monsters. And again, it's just all these costumes that I bought from like Trick or Treat Studios or Amazon. They're just really like, it's just rubber masks and stuff, and like, crappy Frankenstein costumes. And they're going to go head to head and like rip each other apart. And so the cult's Frankenstein creation from the beginning of the movie finds its way to this Dr. Frankenstein, and it becomes like a Godzilla kaiju type scenario where you get like one Frankenstein monster battling a whole bunch of Frankenstein monsters.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of, the loose premise of that. And I've got like a bullet pointed outline script for that as well. And Bill Whedon is going to be playing the great great grand descendant of Dr. Frankenstein, and he wants to come out here to Michigan and film like as soon as we can, but it's just every time I get close to like being able to start shooting, like my car will break down because I'm a Door Dasher, so I'm like my car will break down and it's like $1,300 for repairs, or it's like I just paid because I'm a Door Dasher, and like my income does not get taxed like, while I'm working. I have to pay my taxes like later. So that was like a $2,000 expense, to pay my taxes for my Door Dashing I did last year. So just in the last like 2 months, I've spent over like $3,500.
Oh, geez.
Just, on like stuff that I wasn't expecting. Like I knew the taxes were coming. I didn't expect my car to break down.
Right.
So it's like every time I get close to being able to like start production, because I got to pay Bill and I got to like fly him out here and everything. It's not going to cost $1 million or anything, but it's like when I just spent $3,500 on this stuff, I got to start from scratch.
Man, well, I love it. I love that idea. So
Yeah.
I hope you can do it. So I'd love to see it. So,
Yeah, and like it's not gonna be like fourth wall breaking or like meta crazy the way that Psycho Ape is. Like I'm kind of trying something a little different. It's still gonna be humorous. It's still gonna be a comedy. Only the jokes aren't gonna be like bonking you over the head the way that Psycho Ape does. It's more I want people to laugh at how cheap like the Frankenstein costumes are. And I also intend to shoot it in 4K to really show like the detail of like how cheap these costumes are, because I think it's humorous in that here's a really cheap special effect like a live act like a real live like arm rip and it's just like a styrofoam arm, but it's shot in 4K. Like, why would you shoot such a cheap, crummy special effect in 4K? Like, I think that there's humor in that, you know?
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, then that gives us something to look forward to. So, all right. So we're going to wrap this up, and which I think I said before, and I could talk for hours on these type of things. So I have to cut it off at some point because I know you're busy and I'm busy. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. You know, I'd like to thank Addison for being here. I think, you know, this has been great, and please, everybody, go out and watch his stuff, you know, YouTube or streaming or physical copies, whatever it is, you know, go out and pick them up. So, you know, they're definitely worth watching. So, you know, yeah, and I guess that's it. So I guess we'll see everybody on the next episode of One Filmmaker. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Talk to everybody later. Bye.